Thank you for tuning into the Eld Henderson Real News Show, issues, views, and solutions. The Eld Henderson Real News Show is designed for you to listen, learn, and invest your knowledge and skills in your community. The show's format will be clear and direct. Each show will identify a problem. It will determine who benefits from the problem. The show will also determine who is the victim. And finally, we will show you how to create a prioritized action plan for success that can change your life, family status, and community in 30, 60, 90 days guaranteed. The Eld Henderson Real News Show will identify, address, and teach you how to resolve problems in education, economics, politics, religion, community development, and local, state, national, and international affairs. So I want you to stay tuned for the Eld Henderson's Real News Show. Hello, viewers. This is Eldridge Henderson from the Eld Henderson Real News Show. Part of being successful is dressing for success. This is why I want to tell you about Pennywise Cleaners, who's been serving the Southwest Jackson community for over 3 years at 4590 Raymond Road in Jackson, Mississippi. Pennywise delivers friendly service with a smile. Whether drop-off, drive-through, or delivery, Pennywise has got you covered. All work is done on-site using state-of-the-art equipment to keep you sharp and clean. A penny saved is a penny earned. At Pennywise Cleaners, located at 4590 Raymond Road, Jackson, Mississippi. For more information, the number is 601-372-0097. Pennywise Cleaners is a proud sponsor of the Eld Henderson's Real News Show. Thank you, viewers, for tuning into the Eld Henderson's Real News Show. Today I have a guest with us that's going to be addressing politics, economics, religion, and anything else he wants to talk about. My guest today is Brother Baba Licata. He is the president and founder of the Real Learning Institute of Jackson, Mississippi. Glad to have you, Mr. Licata.
Pleasure to be here.
I understand that you know something about economic development, just as one of my guests that talked to us a few weeks ago, Mr. David Mosley.
Yeah, we both kind of work in that area of trying to get economic development, collective economic development within our community.
Okay, well, today we want to talk about that, and I do want to mention some of the good things that you know about the Democratic Party. And before we get too far, we might want to address some of these national politicians. I know you love a certain candidate that's running for president of the United States. I would not say running for president, but is a candidate, for the presidency.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that a certain female in this candidate will be in the runoff for the top position.
We hope that there'll be some consideration.
And we will have our viewers to hear that, and hopefully they'll make a good decision as to what will be happening in politics in just a few months on the national level. So, Brother Licata, I want you to tell us, what is the goal of the Real Learning Institute?
Well, primarily what we want to do through the Real Learning Institute is just what the name implies. We want to create some real learning in our community. One of the biggest problems that we have in our community is the idea that we've been miseducated, as Carter G. Woodson has implied and written about in his book, The Miseducation of the Negro. We've been miseducated since 1619 at least, and beyond. So the 1619 is the date that is given for the first members of our race to be brought here to North America as slaves. But when you go back and you look at the history, you find out that actually the first slaves came in 1561. So again, even from that point, we've been miseducated. So our goal is to provide some real learning for individuals who are interested in increasing their what we call social and cultural consciousness.
Okay, so that's one of your goals, education.
Mm-hmm.
You want to eliminate miseducation.
Exactly.
You want the viewers of our show today to understand that if they have an opportunity to get a superintendent, a principal, those folks should be addressing the needs of the Pacific local community and not what the state has endorsed. Am I correct?
Well, again, when you talk about education, there's different components of education, and what you're referencing right now is the political education. So what you're talking about right now is those political positions that people hold, either through appointment or through election, and we want to make sure that each one of those persons who hold those political positions understand that they have to be accountable to the people and not necessarily to the system.
Okay, well, you tell me this. Let's look at some local areas here in education. Now, in Hinds County, for instance, we have about 4 different education systems with its own superintendent.
Right.
And in some instances, and especially in the adjoining counties, the schools are superior. In the next county, which might be 2 blocks from each other school-wise, the school there is failing. All the candidates that are in position have college degrees, they have administrative degrees, they are principals and superintendents, and they're supposed to know about the best practices to use in education, but at the same time, one school has an F rating and the other one has an A rating. How is this possible in the same locale?
Well, I think one of the things that we got to be mindful of is the distribution of resources. In some cases, not in all cases, in some cases, the school that is an A grade school has been getting the better portion of the resources for a longer period of time. That's one of the problems. The other problem is the politics. Some people call it politics. I like to refer to it as politics. There are different kinds of things that we can do with our system that will allow for the perpetuation of what they call dumbing down of the education of some children. And that's been going on in Mississippi for years.
Now, would you put that blame on the local superintendent, the school board, or the parents not being able to do anything about it or don't want to do, or you want to blame the state for that?
I think one of the things we got to do is we got to recognize that there's not one simple place where the blame can be placed where that particular entity or that particular individual gets all of the blame. Now, the blame has to be divided up equally or proportionately, not necessarily equally, but proportionally. When we start off talking about blame or fault or whatever, however we want to term it, the bulk of the fault, the bulk of the blame is going to go on the system, which would be represented by the governor of the state. Phil Bryant, in this particular case, bears the brunt of the most of the responsibility. Under Bryant, you have the state's superintendent of education, and then under the state Department of Education, you have the superintendent of those 4 districts that you spoke about. So each one of them has a piece of Bryant's blame. Now, when you talk about education, then we recognize that, or we've come to recognize, we didn't always know this, but we've come to recognize that in order for a quality education to happen, then you have to look at the system, you have to look at the district, then you have to look at the parents, the teachers, then you look at the parents, and then you look at the students. So there's blame to go around on all levels. Students bearing the least brunt of that responsibility because they are there to learn. Of course, we have some students who don't come to learn, but that's because the parents have not instilled in them the value of education. The parents are thinking that that's the job of the district or of the teachers. The teachers are thinking, on the other hand, that the parents have a responsibility to prep students before they even get started in education, so that when they get there, then my job is to piggyback or to continue what you've already started at home. Again, a good education system is a system where the parent is the first teacher.
Okay, the parent is the first teacher. So it is evident that in most areas of the country where the students are failing, you are saying the parents then must be concerned as the primary learner, which they must learn themselves how to teach their children at home. And at the same time, the kids either learn or don't, and when they get to school, they suffer the consequences of evil, which has already been miseducated.
Exactly, but understand, parents, the majority of the parents have not been trained as professional educators. So the kinds of learning that the parent is responsible for are the common sense kinds and character kinds of building that you would hope that a parent would give a child.
Give some examples.
For example, character building. a parent should be responsible to teach a child how to sit and listen in order to be taught. So that when they get to school, they know that they should be disciplined enough to sit there and be able to listen to a teacher as a teacher is teaching. That's a character trait that a parent should be teaching. The parent should also be able to teach a child to recognize shapes and colors, so that when he gets to school, the teacher can piggyback or ducktail on that learning and not have to start from the beginning. They call that pre-formal learning. The formal learning starts supposedly at kindergarten, but you know now that they're pushing for preschool education in Mississippi. And the reason why they're doing that is because they recognize that parents are not providing that training at home. But those are some of the basic trainings that a parent can teach a child and needs to teach a child. Parents also need to teach their children not only how to recognize shapes and colors, but they should be teaching them the basics of the rhythm of the ABCs. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. They can teach the child those recognition characters at home.
Now, what about those social skills? You know, a lot of little students don't even have decent social skills when they attend school, even in kindergarten. They fussing with the teacher. I hate to use the word cussing, but I've known youngsters to cuss the teachers out. They run up to them and pull on them. They won't listen. They won't sit down. And then you ask them to do something, and they refuse to do it. Many times they don't even know the name. They don't even know the phone number. They don't know the address. They don't even know the parent's name. And this, to me, is a social skill that you should have already taught the student. He should know his name, his phone number, his address, and he should know the real name for his mother, his father, and his brothers and sisters, and not be calling himself some nickname that people have been discussing for the last 3 or 4 years.
Not just calling himself by his given, quote unquote, given name, but he, as you say, he should also know his mother's given name, his father's given name. But again, because of what children do is repeat what they hear. So when you get a child that's coming into the classroom and that child is not properly disciplined, again, as I said earlier, doesn't have proper self-discipline, that's because he's not seeing discipline at home.
Okay, so
the parents aren't disciplined.
Well, it appears that you want to put the blunt on the parents, which is very important in those early years. So you're exactly right, sir. I agree with that. But now, what is the role of the politician in the area, the church in early education, and the corporate entity in the respective communities? Now, in just a few minutes, we're going to take a break, and I want you to address all of those issues. What the religious institution is supposed to do, the corporate entities, and then what are some of the major responsibilities of the school board members, the principals. Shouldn't they know that if school X has 5 or 6 major characteristics that's keeping them at the upper level, I would say level A, shouldn't they do the same thing? And if not, why you don't think one school, even with meager resources in the district, can produce 3 or 4 schools that are superior, and then the others don't do nothing but fall in the F, D, and C category, and they have the same resources?
Well, one of the things that we want to keep in mind is the way this system is structured. For whatever reason, we think that that education happens only in the school.
Okay. Well, we're going to find out what is the problem. Then we're going to address the solution when we get back. I understand that with your training, you have had some experience in education from the high school through the college level.
That's correct.
You have been a college administrator some years ago.
That's right.
And now you are what I consider an independent consultant, and you do talk to these people at these colleges and universities. I know you're in the school system, but are people listening to you? We're going to find that out in just a few minutes. And as we prepare for the break, I want you just to address those areas, and then we're going to talk about politics on the national level. That's what we want to do. Are you ready to talk about those presidential candidates?
I think so.
You're great lovers of democracy, and I want you to talk about the Democrats and the Republicans.
Sounds like a good conversation.
Very good.
All
I
right.
hope you're ready for that. Now, I don't want you to be skipping on us now. I want you to give us the real news.
We'll do that.
This is the Eld Henderson's Real News Show, and that's all we want here, real news.
All right.
The Action Leadership Institute has office space for rent at North Jackson off I-55 South at 5435 Executive Place Office Park, located in a high-traffic count area. There are 4 offices available, 1 office space, 650 square feet, 3 offices, 150 square feet each. All are available today with first month free and deposit. Ideal spot for established businesses and startups such as law and tax offices, insurance companies, boutiques, counseling centers. Again, the address is 5435 Executive Place Office Park, shown by appointments only. The number is 601-201-1957. Thanks for staying with us. Our guest is Brother Licata. Brother Licata, I understand that you are a political activist also. You're dealing with the Democratic Party in the state of Mississippi, and you have a strong interest in national politics. I've been told by some people that you are looking very closely at the Democratic and Republican candidates for the presidency, and that you have made some choices. Now, we know what you think is just what you think. Who you think will be the best presidential candidate if we had the 2 top leaders in the respective parties to start off tomorrow running against each other?
Well, if we're going to have in my opinion, this is just my opinion, if we're going to have a competitive election, then I think that on the Republican side, there's no doubt that Donald Trump is going to be the Republican candidate. On the Democratic side, there's a question as to whether or not it's going to be Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders. In order for it to be a really competitive national election, I think that Bernie Sanders is going to have to be the Democratic candidate. I honestly don't think that America is anywhere near ready for a female candidate.
Okay, Mr. Baba Licata, here you are now. You're getting ready to start talking about being prejudiced. You are going to tell the listeners that Hillary Clinton wouldn't be a good, strong candidate to address local, state, national, and international affairs for this nation?
It's not so much that she wouldn't know how to do that. I don't think that the people believe that she knows how to do that. You got to keep in mind, right now, the threat level from terrorism to the United States is extremely high. And white males in America are convinced that they need a man in the presidency in order to reduce that threat.
Now, who is that man then?
Right now, it would, in my mind, it would be Bernie Sanders. But in the minds of the people who are the more influential in this community, I think it's going to be Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump is going to be the next president of the United States.
Would he be good for all the people in the states, respectively, and the nation? And would his international policies be adequate to put up a strong defense for America?
I think Donald Trump is going to be the worst president that the United States could ever have, even worse than George Bush Jr., who was pitiful. And I think Donald Trump will be even worse. But again, I think that the United States is going to choose, I think the citizens of the United States are going to choose him over Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders.
Now, why would the United States, in your opinion, select a man that's not going to be good for the nation as a whole and select a person that they know will be divisive, that's going to cause the enemies to consolidate their resources and possibly attack the United States inland versus on the outside in other areas? What is the problem here, as you are saying? Support Donald and get chaos?
Well, again, you got to keep in mind this country has been run under a system of patriarchy since its existence. It's been male dominated from its existence, and it's going to continue to be male dominated for a while. And again, it's that reason alone, no other reason why they're going to choose Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton. And I think that Donald Trump is going to have a stronger influence than if the Democratic nominee was Bernie Sanders.
Okay, so you are saying he is the president. We're just saying that right now.
Okay, all right.
Now, what's going to happen with with minorities in America? Would he be a strong component for blacks, Hispanics, the Arabs, and other minorities in America?
I think that there are pockets in each one of those communities that would benefit from his presidency. Those individuals who are leaders and businessmen in those communities, the Arabs that are businessmen, the blacks that are businessmen, the Mexican who are businessmen, would benefit from Trump being in office. But the remainder of those communities are going to be in big trouble. Trump is only concerned about those who can carry their own weight. He does not have American compassion, if that even exists, but he doesn't have it at all. And he certainly doesn't have Christian compassion.
Okay, now here you're accusing a man of not being a Christian. Just the other day, he got a group of black ministers together, and they were kissing his finger and his feet and saying he was the best thing since sliced bread and apple pie, that he loves black folks. And then he said the same thing, and you were telling me that must have been just the top of the preacher circuit and not the average person that's looking out for 99% of the members in the various congregations throughout the state of this nation.
Keep in mind what I said earlier. We're talking about politics, and those individuals that he was with. If you remember the post-conference press conference that he had, they said they weren't there to endorse him. But when they announced the press conference, they said he got all these black preachers that were there to endorse him. So they were playing politics. And the reason why they had to come out and say they weren't endorsing him, because if they endorse him, then they jeopardize their 501c status that they have with their churches, because churches are not allowed to endorse candidates. So again, you got all these politics and politics that are being played, and that's part of what's being played. Again, like it or not, believe it or not, Donald Trump is not a Christian, as we understand Christianity.
Well, does he have to be a Christian to be president of the United States?
No, you don't have to be a Christian to be well, again, you got to keep in mind, the majority of the people in America who call themselves Christian are not Christian either.
That's true.
Okay? But again, it's like the Klan. They call themselves Christian. The White Citizen Council call themselves Christian. Okay? The Aryan Nation call themselves Christian. Okay? And many of your leading Negroes call themselves Baptist Christians, but they're not.
Well, of course, they are what we call acting Christians. Mm-hmm. They are not practicing Christians.
Which is the same thing with this country.
That's right. Most of those people you've mentioned, and I've been telling you this for at least 5 years, most of those people that you've mentioned cannot quote the 10 Commandments in order. They don't know them. They do not practice them, because you can't practice what you don't know. And at the same time, they have a lot of underhand schemes, and they wheel and deal with the resources of the people that they represent. They work with these politicians and support them, because the politicians give them funds in some instances to support them. And this is illegal from a church point of view, as you just mentioned, because many of them have 501c3s, which they are tax exempt. They are not supposed to endorse politicians. But the same politician will call bishops and elders together, give them $500,000 to $60,000, and tell them to pick up your folks in your church van, and when you get me elected, I'm going to give you a grant so you can have some tutorial programs and help 5 or 10 people a week. Now, is this actually happening in this state and other states in the Union?
It's happening throughout the United States in terms of the trickery, not in terms of the actual good that is professed through the process, but the trickery is definitely there throughout the nation. Again, when you start thinking about politics, let's break it down locally to the Democratic Party. Imagine the embarrassment that the Democratic Party should have had when Initiative 42 failed. Now, here's an initiative that you had spent millions of dollars on, and that initiative was simply to make sure that the children in your state are going to get educated, going to get a proper education. You had $750,000 that was funneled into the state of Mississippi to ensure that that initiative failed, because they do not want poor, uneducated children in Mississippi to be equally educated with their well-to-do children who are getting educated at the private charter schools that they have provided.
Well, Brother Licata, don't you think that's the... Brother Licata, we've been talking about local politics, and I understand that the Democratic Party has been doing what some consider a non-service educationally, and especially with that Initiative 42. At the same time, the Democratic Party is not supporting their own candidates. And you are saying that there must be something funny going on. Tell me what's happening with the local Democratic Party.
You got a lot of what we call, again, politickery that's going on with the local party. You have what they call Republicans in Democratic clothing. You know how you say wolves in sheep clothing?
Right.
We got Republicans in Democratic clothing, starting with the chair of the Democratic Party.
Who is that?
Ricky Cole. The state is we have made since he has been the chair of the Democratic Party. Again, when you go back and you look at Initiative 42, the Democratic Party should be thoroughly embarrassed that they were not able to pass an initiative that would have provided resources to educate your children in your state. Well, they should be totally embarrassed
by that.
Wait a minute,
Brother Licata, that has never happened in the history of Mississippi. You only know that they want to educate about 10 to 15% of the people in the state so they can get the good jobs and have themselves in positions of responsibility, even though the white poor outrank the black poor. Many people are saying that we must keep these black folks ignorant, miseducated, underfunded so they can maintain the current status quo, versus letting the white poor suffer the same consequences. But you know the difference is when whites are suffering along with blacks, they feel that they are all right because they are told by the same people that causing them to suffer, no matter how bad you are, you're better than a black person. And that keeps them from pressing these politicians and these corporate leaders and demanding that they look out for their interests. Healthcare is an example. Education is an example.
It is.
Jobs is an example. Help me say I'm better than the blacks, and you can do anything you want, because one day I'm going to rise and I'm going to be like you.
Well, you know, again, what we have is a situation where there's hope. We're all looking for hope. Black people, white people, everybody, poor whites, looking for something that will give them an inspiration, hope for a better life. The idea that they believe that they are better than us simply because of the lack of pigmentation in their skin gives them hope that someday they may have a better life.
Well, listen, Brother Licata, you got to understand, a lot of these folks in the South and the nation had a wonderful opportunity, and we're going to be closing soon. When they were in the slavery mode, they had people that work for them free. And since they headed back in that direction, it might be something that's in their mind is saying, if we can get these people to the point where they are slaves again, we can have dominant control over them and have the wealth and power we actually need, and we then can be competitive in the state and the nation of the other oppressors that's doing it in the northern cities.
Mississippi has always been a closed state, and part of the reason why they stayed closed is to be able to continue to oppress and subjugate those individuals who are poor and black.
Brother Licata, tell our viewers how they can contact you.
Well, if you wanted to get in touch with me or in touch with the Real Learning Institute, you can email me at realsolutions@yahoo.com, or you can give me a call at 601-918-2698.
Okay, listeners, you heard it from Brother Licata. I want you to stay tuned because we're coming back next week. Same time, same station.